Muammar Muhammad Abu Minyar al-Gaddafi, commonly known as Muammar Gaddafi or sometimes spelled as Muammar Gaddafi, was one of the most enigmatic and controversial political figures of the 20th century. His name is often associated with Libya, the country he ruled for over 4 decades, but his influence extended far beyond his borders. In this comprehensive essay, we will delve into the life, rise to power, policies, international relations, and ultimate downfall of Muammar Gaddafi. Early life and background. Muammar Gaddafi was born on June 7, 1942, in the desert town of Sirte, located in what was then the Italian colony of Libya. He came from a Bedouin family, which meant a nomadic and tribal upbringing. His father, Abu Minyar, was a herdsman who had a profound influence on young Muammar, teaching him the ways of desert life, tribal values, and the importance of Arab nationalism. Gaddafi's early life was marked by poverty, but his ambition and intelligence were apparent from a young age. He attended a local primary school and later received a scholarship to attend the Royal Libyan Academy in Benghazi. This opportunity was crucial for his education and ultimately played a significant role in shaping his political future. Rise to power. Gaddafi's rise to power is a fascinating story marked by charisma, ambition, and an unyielding desire to change the course of Libya's history. He began his political journey as a young officer in the Libyan army and, in 1969, seized power from King Idris in a bloodless coup. Gaddafi's brand of revolution was profoundly influenced by pan-Arabism and anti-imperialism. He was a fervent admirer of Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, who championed Arab unity and resistance against Western influence. Gaddafi saw himself as the champion of these causes and was eager to assert Libya's independence from foreign powers. His vision for Libya was encapsulated in his Green Book, a collection of political essays that outlined his theory of governance, a combination of socialism and Islamic principles. Gaddafi's regime aimed to redistribute wealth, eliminate corruption, and establish a more equitable society. Gaddafi's political philosophy. The Green Book, written by Gaddafi, remains a foundational document in understanding his political philosophy. It was divided into 3 parts, covering the topics of political theory, social and economic theory, and the role of women in society. In these writings, Gaddafi expounded his ideas on direct democracy, wealth distribution, and the role of the state in society. One of the key tenets of Gaddafi's ideology was the establishment of a system of Jamahiriya, which translates to state of the masses. In theory, it was meant to be a decentralized system of direct democracy where the people would govern themselves through popular committees. While this concept sounded ideal in principle, the reality was quite different. In practice, Gaddafi retained a tight grip on power, and the Jamahiriya system was more a facade of democracy than a genuine participatory model. Gaddafi also emphasized his belief in socialism, and under his rule, Libya nationalized various industries, including oil, and introduced welfare programs to distribute the country's wealth more equitably. However, the efficacy of these policies was debatable, and Libya's economic situation remained fragile despite its substantial oil reserves. International relations. Gaddafi's foreign policy was marked by a constant struggle for influence on the international stage. He viewed himself as a revolutionary leader who could unite Arab nations and lead them in opposition to Western imperialism. However, his methods and rhetoric often made him a divisive figure, even among fellow Arab leaders. One of the most significant events in Gaddafi's foreign policy was the decision to expel the United States and the United Kingdom from their military bases in Libya in 1970. This move, along with his vocal opposition to Israel and support for Palestinian liberation, made him a hero to some in the Arab world and a pariah to Western powers. Another defining moment in Gaddafi's international relations was his involvement in various conflicts and support for revolutionary movements. He provided financial and military assistance to numerous groups, such as the Irish Republican Army, IRA, the African National Congress, ANC, and various Palestinian factions. His support for these groups earned him notoriety and condemnation from Western governments. Gaddafi's involvement in the international arena extended beyond support for revolutionary movements. He sought to create a United States of Africa, an ambitious project aimed at uniting the continent under a single government. However, this initiative faced significant resistance from other African leaders who were skeptical of Gaddafi's intentions and methods. Perhaps the most contentious moment in Gaddafi's international relations was his involvement in the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. Libya was accused of orchestrating the terrorist act, which resulted in the deaths of 270 people. Gaddafi's government eventually accepted responsibility and paid compensation to the victims' families, which led to the lifting of sanctions against Libya in the early 2000s. Challenges and controversies. Gaddafi's rule was characterized by a combination of charisma and controversy. While he presented himself as a revolutionary leader and sought to enact various social and economic reforms, his methods were often heavy-handed and dissent was not tolerated. One of the most significant controversies of Gaddafi's rule was the regime's treatment of political opposition. The government maintained a pervasive security apparatus that suppressed dissent and imprisoned those who spoke out against the regime. Torture and extrajudicial executions were common, and the absence of political freedoms tarnished Libya's human rights record. Gaddafi's suppression of political opposition reached its peak in 1996 when security forces brutally cracked down on an Islamist uprising in Benghazi, which resulted in thousands of casualties. The violent response to this uprising was a stark reminder of Gaddafi's willingness to use force to maintain his grip on power. Economic challenges also plagued Gaddafi's rule, despite Libya's vast oil wealth. The country's economy remained largely state-controlled, which hindered economic growth and diversification. Gaddafi's experiments with socialism and attempts to redistribute wealth did not result in sustainable economic development, and Libya's prosperity remained uneven. The Arab Spring and downfall. The turning point in Gaddafi's rule came in 2011 with the eruption of the Arab Spring, a wave of protests and uprisings across the Arab world. Libya was not immune to the unrest, as demonstrations demanding political reform and an end to Gaddafi's rule swept through the country. Gaddafi's response to the protest was brutal. He used military force against demonstrators and vowed to crush the opposition. His actions prompted international outrage and led to the United Nations Security Council passing a resolution authorizing military intervention in Libya to protect civilians. A NATO-led coalition conducted airstrikes, and rebel forces, with international support, made significant advances. The conflict in Libya escalated into a full-scale civil war, with Gaddafi and his loyalists facing off against various rebel groups. In August 2011, rebel forces captured the capital, Tripoli, and Gaddafi went into hiding. He was eventually captured by rebel forces, and on October 20, 2011, Muammar Gaddafi was killed in his hometown of Sirte. The fall of Gaddafi marked the end of an era in Libya, but it did not bring immediate stability to the country. The power vacuum left by his absence resulted in ongoing conflict and the emergence of rival militias and factions, as well as the proliferation of weapons that would later contribute to the destabilization of the region. Legacy and impact. The legacy of Muammar Gaddafi is complex and hotly debated. For some, he was a charismatic and defiant leader who championed anti-imperialism and stood up to Western powers. He provided free healthcare and education to his people and used Libya's oil wealth to fund various development projects on the African continent. In some African nations, he is still remembered as a benefactor who offered support and investments. On the other hand, Gaddafi's rule was marred by human rights abuses, the suppression of political dissent, and a cult of personality that stifled any form of opposition. His foreign policy, while attractive to some in the developing world, often came at the expense of stability in international relations. His support for extremist groups and involvement in various conflicts left a dark mark on his legacy. In the immediate aftermath of Gaddafi's downfall, Libya descended into chaos, with rival factions and militias vying for power. The absence of a strong central authority contributed to instability, and the country became a focal point for human trafficking and the spread of extremism. Gaddafi's death marked the end of his rule, but it did not bring the democratic and stable future that many had hoped for. Libya remains divided, with a fragile government and ongoing conflicts that have left the nation in a state of uncertainty. Conclusion. Muammar Gaddafi was a complex and controversial figure in world politics. His rise to power, political philosophy, and foreign policy all left a lasting impact on Libya in the international stage. While some lauded his anti-imperialist stance and efforts to redistribute wealth, others criticized his human rights abuses and support for extremist groups. The Arab Spring and the subsequent intervention in Libya led to his downfall and death, marking a significant turning point in the nation's history. However, the legacy of Gaddafi and the consequences of his rule continue to influence the region, and Libya remains a nation in turmoil, struggling to find a stable and democratic future. Understanding Gaddafi's life and rule is essential for comprehending the complex dynamics of North African politics, the challenges of post-revolutionary transitions, and the broader implications of authoritarianism in the modern world. His story is a reminder of the complexities of leadership, power, and governance, and it continues to be a subject of debate and analysis in the realm of international politics and history. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join our community. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this content with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome.